Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here. This is my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8 and Third Reich events. Well, this episode, we're back to gameplay. I can prove that by starting things going. Uh-oh. Okay, let's see. We won that, but we're going there. Let's head there. Need to cut them off. Okay, Stimmgeschütz Abteilung 200. Part of that. I mean, this is one of my favorite elements of Black Ice, the Becker series of events. It tells a really good story. You can read the details. Basically, I think they're putting them on Lorraine tractors. Lorraine tractors were a, I think, basically unarmored, fully tracked French munitions carrier or towing vehicle, fairly large. It's that they've mounted. I don't know if the Germans up-armored the cabs. Let's see, 5 batteries of 10 vehicles. But they did light armor some of the cabs for small arms and shell fragments. Okay, good. Okay, we're getting our synthetic industry, and here we are. So we have a unit that has no divisional headquarters. So do we have one here already? No. We want the combined arms. Benefits. Let's give it a headquarters. There we go. Now we have combined arms. Elements, and we already have light vehicles. We've got assault guns. We want to cross rivers, don't we? So, massive river crossing penalty if you don't have engineers in the unit. I think we'll give it this motorized infantry remnant from some other event. OB. Okay, well now we're looking at a decent fighting unit there. So we'll send them to Dieppe, which is our rendezvous off to foreign lands. As mentioned down in the discussion on one of the episodes recently, and I want to. Now I know not everybody reads those. Where is it? Panzer Shift 1. Yeah. Revolver held mod GGA, German Graphical Augmentation. I think the name could be improved. Next version for Hearts of Iron 4. But because he's doing much more than just graphical augmentations. Gives German unit types and ship type names when the country text file runs out of them. So our Panzer Shift 1 for a pocket battleship here because we've used up the available names, like Brunswick and LSS or whatever. So I am taking reasonable historical type suggestions for naming the ship if anyone wants to post suggestions, but they need to be something that's reasonably historic, plausible, shall we say. Meaning super killer battleship isn't going to be what's acceptable. Okay, well, we gotta keep these guys going forward. Headquarters here, yes, we can attach them to locally, or we should need to bring over more headquarters. Not too far away. We do need to bring more headquarters over. 4 headquarters. Send them back, but for the moment we'll at least get them moving forward. What's the terrain like here? Into the hills of Alma. But these guys are still fighting it out. Okay, radar guided missiles. Yes. As forget who, right offhand, correctly pointed out that I was talking about when we were talking about radar guided bombs. It was the Fritz X that I was talking about. So still, at least in the modern, today's version, they were primitive, but they were a smart weapon. We'll do a pressurized cockpit so we can fly our jet fighters high in the air. High altitude. One of the, I think one of the first, I don't mean like first as in experimental, but one of the first production was, what is the B-25 bombers that the Americans used over Japan were pressurized crew compartments. Hope I have the right number. Okay, some you continuing into the jungle. All of our allies are sending air power over here. How are we doing over here? Okay, got transports. We flew in these guys. Reinforcing the headquarters with a airborne artillery. So now that's, it's a reinforced brigade really, but it's almost a division-like structure that we can drop in. I want to put him on rating there. Okay, Craig's Marine Navy element is here. And there's its headquarters, board ship, and the right ones, okay. Go to Spain. Rebase. We're going with the Azores. We're going for the Azores with these guys. I think they'll be able to take it. Don't know. Haven't tried. But I haven't even done reconnaissance. But if it's messed up, we'll get out of there. Unlike a para-invasion, you can... Naval invasions aren't working. You can withdraw successfully without losing. No, I'm not going to reinforce Italy's defense of its border with the evil Swiss. Finally. We're waiting for supplies. Oh, have we been... Oh, we also... Oh, no, we've been supplying both ports. These guys are here, and I'm going to... Let's see if we can send them up to here yet. Yeah, these guys aren't staying here either, they're just... Okay. Add. Terrain. Be close to the moment. Like in Africa, we do have that supply limitation element. Okay, 4-engine bomb base have advanced. Alright. Making some headway in punishing officers after that big drain of expanding the artillery officers. We'll improve rocket ammunition. Commando training has advanced. Well, let it go. Tactical Air Command. Well, we're still at 39, so we'll let that continue. Oh, they were supposed to go with those other guys. Uh-oh, too late. Sorry. Hopefully those 2 divisions will be enough. Well, that's helped our risk a little bit getting over there. Okay, recon unit combined arms. Okay, I think that's probably enough for the moment, at least. As you know, I like the recon because everyone, just about every division has recon. Twin-engine bomb base. Okay, you guys want to get back on board the ship after your nice holiday in Spain. We'll see how the Azores are this time of year. That's the only thing I'm really worried about is if I run into a large naval force, but short of that, not. Like I say, if there's a huge stack of American military forces there, I'll just leave. Okay, how are we doing down in Brazil here? We're winning some battles, but I need to go moving forward. Why are you not getting supplies? You have infrastructure. This is sort of what I'm like worried about in the US. Get stuck for lack of... Okay. Defense and depth. Let's stay your date with that. 45, so we'll move to Hedgehog. And you're able to keep moving. It's enough. Okay, get out of there so you're not eating supplies. We need another core hopefully, so let's... And we'll just get the Spaniards over there. The Brazilians might not like the Spaniards, but hopefully... they'll be welcome in other Spanish countries once we get... Okay, Air Force HQs have advanced, that's great. We're gonna let that go still. I'd like to increase their organization. Streamlined hull, okay, that's submarines, I do believe. And it's a one-off, so okay, that's doing well. That really helps underwater movement. And also keeps it quieter. Air has a lot of resistance, but we don't notice it because it's just what we are used to. When you get in the water, obviously there's considerably more resistance as you move through it, and the faster you move, the greater the resistance is. I know most all you know this, but what's sort of interesting with submarines, and so yes, a streamlined hull will help you go faster because there'll be less resistance. But what also happens is the streamlined hull means less water sound, because although you don't, once you're down there, you don't get bubbles making noise as you're passing and through the water, but there is a bit of a sound effect with, at least this is what I was sort of taught, when you're moving through the water, that it's just easier to detect the sounds coming off the submarine. So it's not the major sound is if you're running a diesel engine or whatever like that. That's very noisy. But the more streamlined you can make that the hull of the submarine, the quieter it's going to be as it passes through the water. Like I'm trying to say is, you hear the sort of water bubbly effect you sort of think of going through the water, but there is a sound effect even without the bubbles once you're down there that high quality hydrophones can detect. So I don't know how well they would the hydrophones in World War II were detecting that, but more modern ones would. So doing that would also help you avoid detection. So that's a very useful thing. I don't think it should be. I hope it isn't. You know, just standard upgrading. You need to build a submarine that way. It's not like adding you know, better radios or something like that that you can retrofit. Okay, short-barreled HE guns. Okay, yes, that was there. Which allows us to do that. So heavy assault guns. I presume that's the, like the Brumbar type reasonable heavy assault guns, and not well, Sturm Tiger I guess as well, but that's sort of getting, in my opinion, a bit unreasonable. A bit more than needed. And get some more wolf floats. I don't know if we're going to actively use them. But at least we have them if we want to create them in America or some other place. Okay, here we are. Okay, let's see. Naval battles. What are we fighting? U.S. Division base event place there most likely. Well, we could have used this in the 3rd Division, but I don't think it's necessary. Yes, we'll give Argentina supplies. We want them to like us, if for no other reason, and naval HQs. Let that go as well. Make sure we click the right button. Yes, HQ, and we're going to do national recruiting policy. And again, I'm going to go for the balanced approach. I don't need a flood of militia units. And I do want manpower enough to man all my megalomaniac desires for huge numbers of divisions. Okay, the one thing I seem to see that's missing are motor torpedo boats. Well, we got a few here. But I keep building those because I'm expanding my areas of operation and expecting to lose a certain amount readily in combat. A few more just regular interceptors. Japan! You want supplies? Certainly you can have supplies. Particularly you can, because you're doing useful things. You're invading people. You're taking on the enemy. Let's fly you over here. Do some air superiority flights just to see what's there. Okay, lots and lots of ships. Some artillery, bunch of headquarters. More headquarters. Okay, well, go home. We don't need you banged up too much. I just wanted you to... Yeah, a lot of ships. Okay, cold oil conversion. That's a good... Maybe only minor improvement, but anything's better than nothing. With that. And 2 other things. At least one dealing with armor. Okay, motorized support units and medium velocity guns. Okay, too far forward. Date-wise, cancel that. Let's see. Improve security units. Do that. And medium velocity gun. Which will improve our standard armor. We still have a slot, so we'll do heavy armor improvements as well. So, building airbase there. And, yeah, are we sinking anything with our subs here? No supply convoys sunk yet. Some American ships, okay. We're getting a lot of sinking still. So that's useful. Why aren't you getting any damn supplies? Please don't make me go on another supply rants. Okay, combined arms, communications. We're upgrading fairly well there. Totally flexibility would be a very good thing. And we can need coordination. Improve the sure plunk ability. Come on. Gonna need to fly supplies to there. Okay. Well, that's our infrastructure like here. Okay, so we can't even go there. Oh, with one of reserves. Why are you waiting for supplies? You have supplies. So all the techs are coming up right now. Oh, it's after the first of the year, so they've gone from being a slight negative to no negative, so they're all popping. That's it. Okay. That makes sense. Because yes, it's much more efficient not to do it in advance, but I will do it a year in advance, so... Well, elastic defense is good, so we'll do that. Well, now you have supplies, go to attack. And we have the Azores. Okay, that looks well enough defended. There's lots of radar and air bases. And just what I need if it's within range to get to Newfoundland. Okay, I'm going to leave the Marines there for the moment. Let's send them back to here. And we need to send supplies, of course. Then go out of La Rochelle. Azores. Like La Rochelle because I don't think size of port for sending out matters. And the difference between coming down here, this is just a longer supply chain, but without increasing real closeness to where we're going. And otherwise, if we come out through the Mediterranean, if we were still facing British activity out here, I would consider that much more. But I think this is, for going across the Atlantic, probably the best choice. And right now it's drawing pretty reasonably good supply routes away from the enemy. Okay, rare materials refining techniques. That's also another good one that will help us out, probably solve any lingering problems. Though Brazil's going to do that for us, just generally speaking anyways. They've got a lot of rare materials there. And advanced tank optics, yes. That is important. If you've been watching my War Thunder series, and now I've normally been playing arcade, but it doesn't seem, so I've played some with the, okay, we'll grayed out, some of the Soviet and some of the American stuff. It doesn't seem to change the optical sights for different countries, and they really were different, which really affected how well you were able to target the enemy quickly in that game. But it's something that really does matter for see and shoot first kind of thing. Yeah, we're running out of supplies here. Yeah, well. Yeah, everything's popping up now. Okay, strategic rocket engine advance. Not enough for... Oh, no, it is enough, so we're going to stop that. We're just waiting on rocket structure. Improve our naval bombers. Those are very useful. We're using a lot of acoustic torpedoes. These are ones that home in on sound. One of the bigger problems with those is determining what sound you're homing in on, meaning you can home in on your own ships or subs. Okay, so we have that. That's ended. Let's go with damage control. I know we're pushing the forward a bit, but probably save some units. Machine gun focus, okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Don't want to get too far behind what the US. Okay, pilot training. How are we doing for that? Okay, we're going to let that go as well. Pilot and ground crew. Now, ground crew on jets are significantly different than ground crew on propeller engines. So that one I would definitely agree that ground crew should be separate from other types. Airborne assault tactics. Again, we're going to let that one go. And so this one here. What is this? Artillery brigades. We'll shift it to self-propelled. Some of these back so they're not eating any more supplies. Okay. Now, rocket structure advanced. So, good. Yeah, we'll do... Well, I think air-to-air is most useful first. Okay. I talked about this in my first version of this before the crash, and this is delayed because of various things. Okay. British Free Corps, Waffen-SS. The British Free Corps. A very real outfit. It's a very real photo of them. You can see the England shield worn there. You can see the cuff title, British Free Corps, and you can see more clearly on that one the 3 lions, or are they leopards? I forget which of the Plantagenet, the English Plantagenet coat of arms patch that they wore. This group was made up of volunteers from prisoner of war camps. Prisoners taken Dunkirk, and, you know, the whole BEF retreat. Losses in North Africa, in Greece, and other places. Crete is where they got most of the prisoners of war, the British ones. Not of like the later Scorzini type impersonators that were Germans that either were, you know, one parent English or American and had lived in America or Britain, so they or just had lived there for a while so that they spoke English like a native. No, these were true Britons, mostly English to my understanding. I've seen no iconography that's Scottish or Welsh, meaning no Welsh dragons, no Scottish rampant lions. Not saying that there weren't Scottish or Welsh in the group, or Irish, but it was, I think, mostly English. Including in an authoritative text, it has been cuff title Britishers Freikorps with a K Corps. That is incorrect. It was never used German language titles for the group. So any cuff titles or images, it's all post-war fakery. It's always done in English. Very real unit, as I said. that my understanding is I don't think it ever. There were like 30 some members, and I don't even know if that was 30 some members at any one time. There were significant disciplinary problems with at least some of these guys involved in the unit. And I can sort of understand, I'd say sort of, not too much, but you know, you're in a prisoner of war camp for a long time. Things aren't going well. You want to get out. Troublemakers, they're having trouble in camps, want to get out. So they joined this group. As we've talked about a little bit before, there was the BFU, the British Union of Fascists. There were the Lord Haha's group, that's William Joyce's group, Steer Straight. They used ship's wheel, sort of as a pseudo swastika type thing. Now they were National Socialists, Nazis, as opposed to fascists. There was the Reich Club, which was sort of an elitist, anti-Semitic, far-right type group. They were some of the people that Rudolf Hess was sort of some of their members that he was trying to contact when he flew up to Scotland. So I don't know how much these guys were former members or members of any of those groups that had joined the army, drafted into the army. You know, how ideological this group was. Obviously, this group was willing to become traitors. My understanding is that they were promised that they would never have to face English in combat. They were sent east. Though, to the best of my knowledge, they never saw combat in the east. It was I think, organized up as a signals unit, but I don't know who they were talking to because, to the best of my understanding, there wasn't significant German fluency in the group. So, you know, yeah. As a signals group, I would presume you would need to be able to talk to the other German units. It was mainly a propaganda function use group. I'm sure that if the Germans had been able to raise company or battalion strength units, they would have been put into the Great Crusade against Bolshevism. That's part of how some of the recruiting posters in the prisoner of war camps was, you know, fight for Europe, fight against the Eastern hordes. So I don't know all their motivations, but they were definitely serving members of an armed service that took service in a country fighting against their country. So yes, they were traitors. I don't know if they were put into the front lines against the Western Allies, whether they would have the intention of immediately taking off their coats and surrendering, go, hey, I was a prisoner of war, I joined the enemy just simply to get here to surrender and come back. I know you're not going to trust me, but I was just trying to get out of the prisoner of war camp. This is an escaped attempt kind of thing. Probably some of them would have done it just to avoid getting killed if they could. Whether they would have done that or not, I don't know, but definite possibility. So that's, like I say, a very real group. Third Reich Events has 4 fantasy Waffen-SS units. They're fantasy units in that they never existed, or as in this one case, didn't exist in this format, but they're all for fantasy situations. One of them is the Wilhelm Gustave Mountain Division, made up of Swiss Germans, if and only if you take Switzerland. So if you have that fantasy situation, I do believe they could have raised more than just a few hundred Swiss volunteers, enough to form a division, based on what happened in Norway, based on what happened in Western Europe, Denmark. I think that's reasonable to presume, and so I decided to name it after Gustav. the Swiss-German Nazi martyr. There are, of course, other possible names, but that's the one I went with for that unit. This is the other fantasy unit, based name-wise and unit description off of the historical unit, in that, as I was talking about, there were various right-wing groups, like in other parts of Western Germany or Western Europe, in Britain. So if you get to this point that Britain's taken, I think it's reasonable to presume that they would have been Waffen-SS volunteers. Really good movie. I mean, it's sort of a dated, sort of TV-like movie. I think from early 60s. It happened here. I will, when another event or two happens, I will cover it. But Andrew Marlowe was partly responsible for making that movie. He is one of the experts on World War II uniforms, particularly, and I think it's a 5 or is it a 6 series book on SS uniforms. He's now long since passed, but he very much was an expert on it. He was one of the producers or whatever of the movie, and it talks about and examines what Britain would have been like under German occupation, Nazi occupation. Very good movie in that sense. Not that it's a wonderful movie, it's really good, solid on its history, and I have not made nearly the number of events that I intended to for German occupation in Britain, but I'm using that movie when I do as my basic theme, source for images and other things, because I think it is spot on to what would have happened. So I'm going off of some experts on some of this stuff. And so this fantasy unit is based on the fantasy situation, which I think would have happened. So we get the British Free Corps, not the Britishers Freikorps. It was always the British Free Corps in English. So we have this unit here. Now, for these units, I don't make unique counters like Alexei does. It's nice, but it's just one more unit to have to do with all this damn text that, HQ upgrades, etc., would need to be done, and I just don't have the patience to do that for every last upgrade of Black Ice. If it was doing it one time, I would happily do unique headquarters and things like that. That would be really cool, and I would be happy to, but every 2 weeks or it's been longer than that, obviously, for the latest update of Black Ice, but every update you have to go in and re-add them, and it's just too much for me to do with chasing Black Ice and its upgrades. I love Black Ice, but that's one of the things as a modder I don't like to chase, so I try to limit the number of things I have to do with that. Okay, let's see. The Seehund. These are, well, let's see how, are these units, the mini submarines. That's one of the, see this is one of the very primitive, wait a minute, that is what we're looking at here. But some of them were much more primitive than this one. I guess it's some of the earlier models. This model I think actually worked fairly well. Some that were just sort of like a man in a torpedo that had a second torpedo below it, they didn't work out so well. But they were too little too late, as is most of the developments, where the British, when they're slightly more sophisticated versions, used to go after what was the Tirpitz somewhere in Norway, and the Mali, which is like pig or wild or hog or whatever in Italian, when their attacks, which were more divers on top of slow-moving torpedoes to bring in their attacks on Gibraltar and Alexandria, were successful, and they were done and set up early enough in the war to have a positive effect. Well, the Tirpitz maybe not so much, but it definitely caused the Germans headaches. I don't think these caused the Americans or the British too many headaches. And it was just a good idea, but not implemented well enough. And by the time they were implemented, the Allies just had such overwhelming power that they didn't do so well. But we'll take them. We'll lose some manpower and supplies, and I think it's into the production queue, is it? Or is it on the map? It's probably on the map then. They're here? Yeah. So we got a little bit of those. Okay. The other two fantasy SS units are later British units, but I make sure they don't all happen at once. Okay, Soviets, you want some supplies, sure. Okay, our ships are probably back by now. No. We will need them. Oh. No, I specifically highlighted these guys, and then yes, that's correct. Now, okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out. I'm right now presuming, though I may not, have close enough here versus there. I don't know. I'm hoping to bypass Greenland at the moment, but if not, it's still worthy to take these, even if I still have to go back up and try to take Greenland. Obviously next time I'll be in Greenland. If I have to, I'll be using these as well as some of those mountain troops. I'm hoping that we can move into here, but I'm going to need to designate an immediate follow-up corps of mechanized forces to make sure I take and hold Newfoundland against any counter punches. I don't want to do that haphazard, so I'll look at that and see that for that next episode. So thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. I do appreciate that. Please post comments. Love hearing from you. See you next time.